probably witnessing its second horrific plane crash in just the past 3 days. Tonight, it is a small plane, a Learjet, that has crashed in northeast Philadelphia. It sent up a fireball in a densely populated neighborhood that includes both homes and also a shopping center. I'm going to show you some footage here of the crash. What you're about to see here is footage from a Ring camera security system that did capture the moment of the crash. This plane, this Learjet, had just departed from northeast Philadelphia Airport. It's not the main airport in Philly, but a small airport. It was en route to Springfield Branson Airport in Missouri. This is around 6:30 p.m. Local time, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. The crash site is near the Roosevelt Mall in northeast Philly. But again, homes there, cars there. This is a densely populated part of a big U.S. city. First responders very quickly reached the scene. They found fires burning, several homes and cars on fire because of the impact and the debris. Local officials, including the mayor of Philadelphia and Pennsylvania's Governor Josh Shapiro, are in contact. They are helping coordinate the response. We may be hearing from Governor Shapiro in just a moment as local officials continue to brief on the scene. We had very quickly initial reports that said this plane was on some sort of medical assignment when it took off. That is confirmed now. Just before we got on the air tonight, we got this statement from Jet Rescue Air Ambulance. Quote, today, Jet Rescue Air Ambulance experienced a crash. The aircraft, XA-UCI, Learjet 55, crashed after takeoff from Philadelphia. There were 4 crew members and 1 passenger. There were 4 crew members and 2 passengers, a pediatric patient and escort on board. So 4 crew, 2 passengers. One of the passengers is a pediatric patient. This was an air ambulance flight. The air ambulance company said no further information is available at this time. At this time, we can't confirm any survivors. No names are being released until family members have been notified. Our immediate concern is for the patient's family, our personnel, their families, and other victims that may have been hurt on the ground. More information will be released as it becomes available. Again, that from the air ambulance company that was operating this flight. A representative for Jet Rescue Air Ambulance tells one of our producers tonight that the pediatric patient on board was a female minor, so a girl, a citizen of Mexico, who had completed treatment and was on her way back home. Again, the 6 people on board that flight believed to be that pediatric patient, an escort with that patient, and 4 crew members. In just the past half hour, Philadelphia's Mayor Sherrell Parker gave the press an update and spoke directly to Philadelphia residents in the region of the crash, asking people not to come to the area and also asking residents who live nearby to not touch debris and to avoid the immediate area of the crash site as the response continues tonight.
We're urging you to please stay away from the scene. If you see debris, call 911. Don't touch anything. This is still an active scene under investigation.
Philadelphia's mayor speaking just moments ago. Joining us now from the scene of the crash is reporter Lauren Make from Philadelphia station WCAU. Lauren, I really appreciate you joining us as this story continues to develop. Can you just describe to us the latest from the scene and what's the latest update on your reporting?
Some sound from Mayor Sherrell Parker as she was speaking here on the scene just minutes ago. She told us she does not have at this moment any information about any fatalities and also delivering that message to people here in Philadelphia to not touch any debris and to stay away from this area. That is difficult for people who live in this area. We've seen a number of people trying to get back to their homes. And let me describe to you where we are. We're a couple of miles from Northeast Philadelphia Airport, that smaller airport that you were just describing. And this is an area where there is a very busy highway. It is 6 lanes on either side, so 12 lanes altogether. And it goes through an area that is both residential and commercial. You've got the mall here and businesses. You've got people who might be going to McDonald's on Friday night and going to other restaurants or other places in strip malls here. And then you've got a very large residential area, homes here. There was a point where we turned down a small street and we saw people streaming towards us, dozens of people coming towards us as police were trying to push them out of the area. And as we looked beyond them and above them, we could see smoke coming from the homes there on that street. Police were literally blocking that street off as we were backing up. This is an area that is very busy, and so it's been a chaotic scene tonight and very congested, difficult to get around here, difficult for medical personnel and for first responders, as well as just people who live in this area in Northeast Philadelphia, as everyone tries to get a handle on what has been happening here. I did also just talk a few minutes ago to a colleague of mine who spoke to a witness here who works in the area, who described seeing debris coming towards him as if there was some sort of explosion. We don't have a lot of information about exactly how to describe that at this point, but that debris was being pushed towards him. He went inside, closed the door to try to get away from it and stay safe. So that's the kind of thing that we are hearing here on the scene tonight. Rachel, I'll toss it over back to you.
Lauren, thank you very much. I know we've got a delay, and I'm not supposed to ask you follow-up questions, but I have to. The perimeter of the area that is closed off, what you know about the density of the neighborhood, do you have any estimate at all, any ballpark sense that you can give our viewers as to how many buildings on the ground may be affected, how large the area of that neighborhood in Northeast Philly is that may have been affected by this crash and by the attendant debris?
Not in anything specific, Rachel, but I can tell you that we have been just trying to get where we are now, 2 different areas, and we have seen them affected. We were over near the mall. We saw that area blocked off. We saw fire personnel, medical personnel, police officers in that area over near the mall on the Macy's side, and that area was all blocked off. I described to you what we saw in that residential neighborhood, and as we looked down that small street, the smoke that we were seeing was not right next to where we were. It was a block or so, or perhaps more than that, down there. Behind where I am right now, there has been smoke billowing. I'll just take a quick check. It looks like it is definitely lower and has come down, died down a bit from when we got here. There is smoke over in that area. I can tell you over to my left, we were over in a staging area over there before we came here, and there was smoke on the other side coming from that area a block or so down. So we don't know exactly how big this area is. That is one of the things that we're all trying to get a handle on. Certainly law enforcement, first responders, a lot of them out here working in various parts of this section of the city. Rachel.
Lauren Make from our Philadelphia station, WCAU. Lauren, thank you very much. It's invaluable to have you there on the scene for us. I really appreciate it. Bringing now into the conversation our own Ali Velshi. In addition to being a host of his show, Velshi, on MSNBC, he's also an experienced pilot who's flown in and out of Northeast Philadelphia Airport many times. Ali, my friend, I know you were on assignment in about 10 different directions tonight. Thank you for joining us on short notice to help cover this. Tell me about the airport itself. This is not an airport that most people who have flown in and out of Philly will have ever seen. People who fly small planes, private planes, medevac and air ambulance planes will have used this airport. But what should people understand about it who haven't been there themselves? Yeah, there are some commercial planes that go in and out of there, but between Trenton and Philadelphia, it's the biggest airport. It's about 60 miles from Philadelphia International Airport. But if you're not a commercial jetliner like an American Airlines plane or a Delta plane, if you're medevac plane, for instance, PNE, Philadelphia Northeast Airport, is the place you would fly out of. It's akin to Chicago Midway. It's in a very populated area, and what you saw in that image that was caught on the ring cam is that clearly that was not a controlled descent. What a lot of people don't think about when they fly is the most dangerous part of flying is taking off and landing for the pilot. It consumes the most of their attention. There are the greatest number of things to do. So when you are taking off, if there's a danger to your plane, something goes wrong, your primary objective is threefold. One is you try and find the place you can land safely that avoids houses, avoids
trees. You try and land as safely as you can. Number two is you turn off your engines, you turn off your fuel so that a fire doesn't start. Now, the problem is this is a Learjet with a range of 2,500 miles. The airport it was headed to was 1,000 miles away, so it was probably about half full of fuel, but it's a lot of fuel. To fly 1,000 miles is a lot of fuel, so that's what you're seeing. Whether or not that pilot was able to turn off the fuel pumps and the fuel supply may not matter when it's that sort of crash. The way you saw that plane go down means that pilot was not in a position to try and land that plane. They're obviously always trying to look for a runway, then you're trying to look for an open field, then you're trying to make sure in that open field there aren't wires and fluxum and jetsam and trees. You definitely always want to avoid houses. We see that there was at least one house on fire there. These are row houses, which is typical of that area. They're very, very close together. Philadelphia Northeast Airport has a control tower. It's actually why I've flown there so many times, because as I was doing my pilot training, I needed to be at an airport that had a control tower that wasn't as busy as Philadelphia. But it's in the Philadelphia airspace, which means flights that are going any distance in and out still fall under Philadelphia's air traffic control, even though there's a control tower there. So hopefully this plane doesn't have a black box on it, but they're hopefully. By the way, when your plane is out of control, you communicate first. You tell them. You tell the tower what the problem is. There are various codes you can use. You can say Mayday. They will ask you what the problem is, and you always get priority as a plane that has an emergency. You get priority over everybody and everything. You don't have to follow air traffic control rules. You don't have to follow anything you've learned. You don't have to listen to anybody else. Your goal at that point is to try and land your plane safely. This does look like a plane that in aviation parlance, lost lift. In other words, it was not flying. That plane crashed in. It was not a controlled landing. We don't know, and we won't know for some time. We will get to the bottom of it. That's the good thing about America, Rachel, is that the NTSB and the FAA do study these things. They will learn what happened, and if it's something that's avoidable, they will put out a directive. If it's something to do with the plane, which is less likely because the Learjet is a relatively new plane, it's been around since about 2000, in the late 90s. It's a relatively new plane. They're in good shape. They've got a good safety record. They're often used as medevac planes. They're also used as luxury planes, but in this case, it's a medevac plane. As you know, 6 people on board, 4 were crew, 1 was a patient. Philadelphia is known as a hospital city. What we do know is this was not a patient at CHOP, which is the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, which is the primary children's hospital. But if you have serious illnesses and you're a pediatric patient or you're young, Philadelphia is a major center for treatment. So all we know right now is this was a young woman, a girl, who had completed her treatment, was headed home, in theory, via Missouri. I think the ultimate destination was Mexico. The company that runs this medevac service is actually well known for providing service to people who are coming or going from South America, the Caribbean, or Mexico for medical treatment in the United States. So that's what we know at the moment.
Hallie, let me just ask you one other thing, which is about, and again, I have only a layman's understanding of this stuff, but I'm thinking about a flight taking off from Northeast Philadelphia headed toward Missouri. Yeah. As you say, this is a flight that's got this is a plane that has a long range. It's got a 2,500 mile range. That's a relatively long flight, and it crashed very soon after takeoff. So as we're thinking about the challenge of fighting these fires on the ground, and we're thinking about the size of the disaster that has been created on the ground in this densely populated part of Northeast Philadelphia, should we expect that there was a ton of fuel on that plane because this was just after takeoff that it took off?
Yeah, generally speaking, you don't want to put a lot more fuel in your aircraft than you need for your trip. But there are rules that say you have to be able to get to your destination and your alternate airport. You always have to have an alternate airport, and you have to have half an hour extra fuel than your alternate airport. So generally speaking, because fuel, it's expensive to have a plane that's heavier to fly further distance. So they would put as much fuel as they needed, but fuel for 1,000 miles plus an alternate airport plus half an hour is still a lot of fuel, and that's the fullest that plane is going to be. In other words, right after takeoff is the most fuel that plane's going to have. That's the problem. That plane went down fast, went down into probably a relatively specific area. In other words, there's no evidence at the moment that things were flying all over the place. But that plane went down with a lot of fuel, which is why you see that size of explosion that you see. There's nothing, when a plane goes down like that, there's nothing the pilot can do to control the fire on the ground. And pilots think this way. They understand if they're going to lose control of their plane and possibly even their lives and the lives of the people on there, they're always thinking about how do I preserve the lives of the people on the ground. So if that pilot had any choice, they would have put that plane down somewhere that was not close to a residential area, in a field, somewhere where if the people whose lives were on the plane were going to be lost, and this is all automatic stuff that pilots think about. You don't even really think about it. It's just drilled into you. To see the way that plane crashed tells me something went wrong in which the pilot lost control of the plane entirely. It is interesting because a Learjet has two jet engines. And one of the advantages of having two engines as opposed to the planes that I would fly, which had one, is that if the engine goes out, you have another engine to be able to get you somewhere and land. But when you're taking off, your plane, everybody knows this, you're at quite an angle. When you're at an angle, you have less maneuverability than you have when you're flying, straight.